Step inside a 1950s classroom, and the first thing that hits you is the atmosphere. A mix of polished floors, chilly morning air, and the unmistakable scent of chalk hanging in the room. Light streamed through tall windows, catching the dust that floated gently above rows of wooden desks, each one marked with the quiet history of initials carved years before. Yet beneath this peaceful stillness was a level of order that would feel unbelievable today. The entire room moved like a small, perfectly drilled unit. Children stood the moment a teacher entered, sat only when told, and followed routines timed with near-military precision. Every sound mattered. Every gesture had meaning. And just when you think that sounds strict, it's nothing compared to what comes next. Rules so intense they'd get any teacher suspended instantly today. To understand why 1950s classrooms felt so intense, you have to picture Britain recovering from the pressures of the previous decade. Families were rebuilding their lives, communities were trying to restore stability, and the entire nation placed an enormous value on discipline, good manners, and obedience. Schools became an extension of that mindset. Teachers weren't just educators, they were authority figures, respected almost like local elders, whose word carried real weight, with class sizes that often stretched far beyond what would ever be allowed today. And with limited resources in many towns, structure wasn't simply preferred, it was essential. Strict routines helped maintain order, kept lessons flowing, and reflected a Britain determined to steady itself through consistency and respect. Yet what adults accepted as perfectly normal classroom structure back then would be seen as overwhelmingly intense, even unacceptable, by today's standards. And just when it seems like those routines couldn't get any stricter, they did. And this is where the rules become unbelievable. Every school day in the 1950s began with a ritual that felt almost ceremonial. The moment a teacher stepped through the door, every child rose to their feet without hesitation. It wasn't questioned or debated, it was instinct. A sign of respect so deeply ingrained that even the sound of footsteps in the corridor could spark a ripple of movement. Once seated, silence settled over the room like a blanket. Speaking was reserved strictly for when you were invited to, and even then, most children answered in short, careful sentences. Then came the handwriting drills. Those long stretches where rows of children copied loops and letters until their hands ached. The scratch of chalk on the board blended with the soft rustle of exercise books, creating a soundtrack that still echoes in memories. Multiplication tables were recited in unison, rising and falling like a rhythm the whole class breathed together. And through it all, you were expected to sit perfectly still, backs straight, feet together, eyes forward. Silence wasn't just encouraged, it was a form of respect. A quiet classroom showed discipline, maturity, and pride. Even the smallest signals mattered. The light tap of a wooden ruler on a desk, the faint hum of cold radiators warming up, the shared understanding that you didn't move unless given permission. And believe it or not, these demanding routines were considered entirely normal. But these were only the everyday rules. What came next was the truly intense stuff, practices that would never pass in a modern school. What came next went far beyond ordinary routines. Some 1950s classroom expectations would raise eyebrows instantly today. Teachers often insisted on perfect posture, gently adjusting a child's shoulders or nudging a desk to the exact angle they believed encouraged concentration. It wasn't seen as intrusive back then. It was simply part of helping pupils present themselves properly. Yet to a child, the pressure to sit just right could feel immense. Public recitation sessions were another test of nerve. Being called to stand and deliver an answer with 30 pairs of eyes watching created a level of tension that most adults still remember vividly. Entire passages of text had to be memorized, word for word, and any hesitation felt like the longest pause in the world. Today, such pressure would be questioned immediately, but at the time, it was considered an essential part of learning. Then there was the infamous silent lunch queue. No whispering, no shifting about, just a perfectly straight line moving at a slow march towards the dining hall. Even the most confident children dreaded breaking that rule. And if that wasn't enough, surprise desk inspections kept everyone on edge. Teachers would glide between rows, checking for tidiness, pencil sharpness, and neatly written pages in handwriting books. Imagine trying any of these routines in a modern classroom. Instant complaints, immediate investigations, and rightly so. But for all their intensity, these systems also shaped a generation's confidence, memory, and resilience. They taught children how to focus under pressure, even if the methods now feel unbelievably strict. And yet, there were even more unspoken rules that shaped daily school life. Beyond the official routines, there were the unwritten rules, the ones every child knew instinctively, even if no adult ever said them aloud. At the top of the list was this simple truth: you never corrected a teacher. Even if you were sure they'd mixed up a date or muddled a name, you kept quiet. Teachers were seen as unquestionable sources of knowledge, and challenging them felt unthinkable. The same went for instructions. You didn't ask why, you simply did as told, trusting that adults understood the bigger picture. Yet within that strict environment were tiny moments of pride that stay with people for life. Being chosen to run an errand was a massive honor. Delivering a note to the office, or carrying books to another classroom, made you feel 10 feet tall. And then there were the classroom monitors, the milk monitor, who handed out glass bottles at break, the chalkboard monitor, who carefully cleaned the board, the book monitor, who kept the reading shelves in order. These roles felt like badges of trust. Still, every child shared one universal fear: being called to the front without warning. The heavy classroom door might creak, the scent of chalk linger in the air, but nothing made a heart race faster than hearing your name spoken sharply. Modern classrooms focus on expression, comfort, and emotional support. Back then, even speaking out of turn was unthinkable. Yet within all that pressure existed a unique blend of respect, pride, fear, and community. It shaped childhood in ways that can still be felt today, leading naturally to the deeper question of what all this intensity created in a generation.